It is the dream of every petrol head kid to be a racer, to drive as fast as possible day in, day out, to be one of those gladiators on the track. I actually tried to be one. A little bit of karting, and that little bit was enough to tell me it was too late. The top guys, they started 10 years before me. But today, I get to be a racer, or at least be in a racer, because ladies and gentlemen, you're watching PowerDrift. We're at the Coast High Performance Center and we're driving this. This, as you probably guessed, is the Altroz Racer. An Altroz that looks faster than ever before, even while standing still. Dual-tone paint, Racer Boy stickers, but that's not all. Because this is faster than any Altroz before it, and I love Tata Motors for that. It would have been okay to just give it a new badge and be done with it. To just give it some fresh paint and call it a day. But to call it a racer, Tata's actually given this more power. To be precise, it gets 10 more power of the horse kind and 30 more torques of the Newton meter kind. And if you're wondering where you've heard of a 3-cylinder turbo petrol 120 horsepower 170-ish Newton meter hatchback, South Korea is a good place to start looking. And while you're looking out, get a good look at the front end, because I strongly suspect in a drag race, you will get a chance to get a good look at the rear end of the i20 thanks to its faster DCT. But the race will be closer than ever, and the Altroz is still the best handling hatch in its class, which should make it the fastest around a racetrack, which is exactly where I am. It is incredibly neutral, very little under or oversteer. But what about when you're not on the track? What about the 99% of the other times when you're out on the road? Stupid question, because of course those extra horses are useful here too. Quicker overtakes, bigger smiles, and more cars in your rearview mirror. Just above that mirror is the sunroof you were waiting for, and below that is the new infotainment screen everyone was waiting for. The old Tata touchscreen was like fossil funk, dinosaurious, old, like old. This new one is far better. It's more modern and gets wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity, which is really useful. It also gets Alexa's car to home features, and I don't know how many of you find that useful, but it's there. Now this screen and this user interface in particular hasn't been the most glitch-free on other Tatas in our experience, but today it's been flawless. That screen also gets a feed from the new 360-degree cameras, and unlike the Nexon where camera frame rates were a problem, this is perfect. Speaking of which, the Racer looks brilliant in my eyes. A warm hatch it may be, but it looks hot. Which means there is only one problem on the Racer: the elephant in the room, the shark in the pool, the 2-ton gorilla in the kitchen wearing socks. The gearbox, because even though Tata has given all the right updates to the Racer, the screen, the sunroof, the 360-degree cameras, at least for now, it is available only as a manual, and that means it's one dual clutch away from having something for everyone. That said, thanks to the new hydraulic clutch on the manual gearbox, it is an easy-going yet fun hatchback that you can appreciate both on the road and, surprisingly, even on the track. But like I said, how often are you on a track? How often are you stuck in a traffic jam? How often do you catch every single red light on that long day home from work? Me? very often. And if you're like me, then this could be the bubble buster, the nope nugget, the deal breaker. Because while the manual makes me feel like a racer, the reality is that I'm not one. And that reality is best swallowed with the convenience of an automatic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the unscripted part of the Altroz Racer review, and I want to first talk about the engine. Now, a lot of enthusiastic people would already know that this 1.2 litre Revotron engine is the same unit as the one in the Nexon. And one big difference between this engine and say Hyundai's TGDI engines is fuel injection, or actually the type of fuel injection. Now, automotive portals are quick to point out that Tata's old school port injection is a negative compared to Hyundai's direct injection, or the more advanced direct injection. Now, yes, direct injection engines make it easier and safer to produce more power without the risk of knocking, but port injection engines have a lot of advantages on their own. Firstly, their design means that there is less carbon buildup in the valves. Their operation means that air and fuel have more time to mix. And finally, their construction means that the components have to run at much lower pressures, especially the injectors, which means replacing them is a whole lot cheaper. And because of these advantages, a lot of manufacturers today are using both port injection for lower RPMs and lower loads, and switch over to direct injection for higher RPMs and higher loads. So yes, they are very different types of fuel injection, or very different ways to get fuel into the combustion chamber, but one's not necessarily better or worse than the other. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the gearbox and the clutch. Now, the clutch is moved to a hydraulic unit for the Altroz Racer, and it does make it a little bit easier to operate, especially in the city. But it's not that much better, and the clutch is a little spiky. So when you first start to drive the Altroz Racer, it's very lurchy and jerky, and it's very hard to drive it smooth until you really get that bite point right. And it's a very unpredictable sort of springy bite point. So clutch is not really the strong point, and neither is the gearbox. If you've driven any of the recent Tata Motors cars with a manual gearbox, you would know that the gearbox is a bit notchy. So it's not the slickest, and I feel if they went for this whole racer vibe and they wanted the manual, I feel they could have worked on the gearbox a little bit and sort of made it like a smoother, slicker gearbox. It would have really made the car a proper hoot to drive. Finally, I want to talk about the exhaust note. Now, Tata switched over to a twin exit exhaust for the Altroz Racer, and they also said they've improved the exhaust note, and that is true. When you're outside and you switch on the car and rev it a little bit, the burbles are very, very nice. They are really nice. My only problem is that you can't hear any of that inside the cabin, pretty much any of it inside the cabin. Yes, at low speeds in the city, if you keep your window down, you can hear the burble a little bit, but I would have liked a little bit more of that, because it's such a nice exhaust note on the outside, and the people you overtake and the people on the streets will definitely really appreciate you passing them by and giving them flybys. But on the inside, you can't really tell so much. And of course, with this engine, there is a trait to have that whine and a gruff engine noise at higher RPM. So yeah, I would have just liked a better cabin experience of the sound, though the sound on the outside, like I said, is fantastic. Anyways, that's it for our review of the Altroz Racer. Hopefully you really liked it. Let me know what you thought of this unscripted bit. And if you have any more questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will make sure to answer them. Thank you for watching. Really epic. And that man there is who I overtook and left for dead, sir.
गजब बेइज्जती है।